Hey guys, Sarnost here. I just wanted to take some time out to show you guys my level 91 armor piercing, armor break Merc and some thoughts about it. I like the build. I think it's fun. It's definitely very shooty. If you think of the Van Helsing movie with Russell Crowe and his weapon he used in that movie. As you can see here, I'm doing a pretty juiced up Lyrium T15 map. Pretty standard. I think the build can map fairly easy. Shoots, armor breaks, pops fire. The fire can spread. They use Herald of Ash to boost that up and to smooth it out a little bit. Also use oil grenades to spread exposure and to get the rolling ignites and the rolling fire exposures. You can see uh, with me popping the grenades and then the waves of fire that come out after that. That's the fire interaction igniting the oil, which I think is pretty cool. Get some elemental action going on, get some layers to the gameplay. You can see here, I keep my oil on my left click, and it's basically wherever my crossbow is pointing, I am firing grenades in that direction. Now, I'm not spamming grenades because I only have 6 shots and they do have a slight reload time. So, and the area is pretty wide on them. So I'm basically hitting a pack at a time with the grenade. Sometimes I lead with the grenade. Sometimes I lead with the armor pop. It just depends how I want to play. Uh, yeah, so you just go in, you pop your grenades, then you start breaking armor. You can see here just chaining explosions, which I think is pretty fun and it's pretty visceral. And at times it can uh, you can just roll the explosions, roll the ignites. But yeah, I think it's pretty satisfying gameplay. Do I think this is an S tier build? No, I think it's more of an A tier build because there's some issues with it, which we'll get into later. Right now, I just want to focus on the basic mapping gameplay. I have completed tier +3 bosses, so you see my quest state there. I've not done the in game. I've done some of the minor pinnacle bosses, but not of the in-game pinnacle bosses. But I do think it's in-game worthy. But like I said, it made A tier high B, not an S tier build, due to I believe stuff that's still coming in early access and maybe other build variants. But I just wanted to put this out there because I've noticed some people on the forums had some issues with the armor piercing, and I think they were kind of going about it uh, maybe the wrong way or trying to get it to scale, which we'll go into the scaling and stuff later. Just focus on gameplay here for a little bit. Now, as we switch scenes here, I wanted to pinpoint one of the biggest issues with the build, and it's not the armor piercing rounds, it's not the armor breaking the fire, it's high velocity rounds. High velocity is a payoff round that consumes armor break. You see, I got two fat boys here, hasted fat boys, pretty thick, chunky guys, and I try to snipe them there at the end using my Coaling Strike and my 60% extra damage to mobs below, 35% life, and it works sometimes, and then sometimes it just feels like I'm better off just keep shooting them with armor piercing rounds instead of taking the time to uh, to use high velocity rounds. And the same thing here with these bosses. Which this boss does bug out, it becomes a double. But kind of you can showcase here. This build can take a few hits, which we'll go into later variants of what can happen. But yeah, this is a +3 boss. I think it's level 83, 84, something like that. Yeah, pretty decent damage. But again, the issue I believe with this build, and that's high velocity rounds, is just it's not there. High velocity rounds, it's not worth the payoff. It's funny enough because it's called a payoff, high payoff. But when you talk about taking the time to switch ammo and what that does to you, it makes you vulnerable when you're in that state of not shooting. You're reloading ammo and switching. Um, it's dangerous. That's when you die the most, is when you're not shooting, right? Because you're not leeching, you're not popping armor, you're not doing stuff like that. So that's the biggest issue around. And the reason why I included this boss is because he bugged out, so we get a bit of a target dummy uh, experience here. And you can see the armor piercing round damage just stacks up. I think at the end of this, it's over 2 million damage. So I think that's fine. But you can see here in this cycle, uh, I'm trying to combo heavy stun and armor break, and it's almost when I shoot him with the high velocity round, it's like it's doing nothing or it's not doing much at all. And I have brutality, heft, long shot, super critical. I got high velocity round juiced up, and you see right there, it's like I just hit him. And, I'm about to hit him again, and it's like it's doing nothing. So I don't. I think high velocity rounds is the weakest link in it was keeping this build from being S tier. But yeah, so we'll go into the build variants and stuff like that. Hold on. All right, guys, we're back. We're gonna go over the skill gems for this build, maybe some of the variants. So first off, we got armor piercing rounds, level 23 max quality for the extra armor break, mobility. This is such quality of life build or gem to keep you moving in the maps. Uh, See me moving around here. I think it's one of the biggest ones. You take it out, dude, it's just so slow while he's shooting. So that is a must. Fire infusion. Once you get deeper in the build, you get some fire. Definitely going to slap in fire infusion to get the ignite going. Because you need fire damage. You see right here, you need that fire damage. Uh, so armor explosion. This is one of the main things of this build. So you're popping that armor and it's making that fire right here. 100% of physical damage converted to fire. This is also what makes this build play different than uh, electric, voltaic, lightning, arrow builds because you're dealing physical damage, and then that physical damage is having an interaction that is fire. You're not just dealing like shock, and that shock is magnifying. It doesn't work like that. You're doing 100% physical hit, and that hit is breaking the armor, making another reaction. That's why this build feels different, is different, and plays different than the voltaic or the charged lightning arrow builds. Okay. And then martial tempo. This build skills so well with attack speed. This is not only attack speed, but it's also rerun speed. Which, where's it at here? Reload. I always lose reload. But anyway, so you see right here, attacks per second. You definitely want this 15 plus in combat when you have some of your abilities that can be attack speed on kill. Um, you want those attacks per second. The attacks per second is huge, and that's also where martial tempo comes into play. All right. So now we go in high velocity round. Spoke about earlier. This is what I think the main issue is for this build. Long shot, inevitable critical, brutality, death. I've put things like super critical, hourglass, stuff like that for extra damage, and it's still very hit or miss. I left it in the build because it's only one of the few things that does consume armor break. And it has a nice chunky bonus, but it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. I have it quality this because it's projectile damage. I'm not using this to pierce. I want it to hit and do some severe damage. Maybe a bleed. I don't know. Maybe it needs to consume like the more elements or effects that are on a target, it does extra damage. Because right now, it might as well just be hitting them with this. All right, here's the next big component of this build. That's oil drip, and that's because of the slow, which is one of your CCs, the fire exposure. Uh, all of this great stuff. Cooldown recovery, you want all this. It feels good. That's what makes the rolling waves, is when that oil catches fire from your knights and armor break. It's a super great interaction. It feels good with the build. Merc, you reload. This is simple. You get an extra boost during the heavy stun phase, or to start a fight off with the boss. Ripwire Ballista feels super good with the build. This is when those hasted guys are just bum rushing. You drop this down to pinned in place, which is great. You pin them in place, you hit them with the oil grenade, then the whole pack's covered with oil, and they're not bum rushing you. And then you have two layers of defense. You have the slow from the oil, and you have the pin from uh, the, the ballista. Now, I would say that the ancestral urgency is the number one thing you should pick, because it allows you to put the ballista / shoulder down against them. So we have Wind Dancer, Unbreakable, Precision, Herbalism, Persistence, and you can move all these around. Clarity, Vitality, Cannibalism, Herald Dash. Now, I would say sometimes the only thing that you could swap out, maybe, and Sniper's Mark to put on bosses for some extra boost and crit damage. Herald Dash, sometimes you can swap out when you're mobbing. Just sometimes the armor explosion is alone is enough to kill the packs. So but this sometimes this smooths it out a little bit depending on how you want to go. You can run Scavenge Plating. Since you're breaking armor, this stays up almost permanently in maps. I did at one point run Combat Frenzy, but it's a huge investment, and I don't think it's worth it because you won't win that attrition. War Banner, you think it synergizes well with the build. The problem with War Banner, I found it's almost like the issue with high velocity round. It's such a long animation time to actually put the banner down that you can die in the time that it takes you to place the banner. So therefore, I don't really like it because it just stops your animation, stops your movement to place it down for a high cost. So to run all of these, you're going to need Spirit on your chest, Spirit on your necklace, and the rest of the gear just pretty standard. Life, resist, attack speed. Attack speed on gloves is a must. Attack speed on the bow is a must. You want as much attack speed as you can because it also scales reload speed. Which if I can find it again here, I apologize. Where is my reload speed? Oh, reload time, 0.33. So with this, like this, you don't have to spec into any of the reload nodes, which they're kind of bait. They're good while you're leveling up, but you should respec out them as soon as possible. Which, speaking of that, we'll go on to the build tree. So the build tree here, we'll start with the Ascendancy. I have no Mercy, and I have Judge Jury and Executioner. Now, the reason why I have both of these is because this build does so many hits, and that's all physical, that these scale really well with it. The Decimating Strike, you're like, you're 20 attacks a second. So those 20 attacks a second, if you're fanning the bolts out across the entire bag, you're decimating each mob that you're hit. And then if it's like a chunky rare, then you're armor breaking him and you're maxing out his concentration on like the first hit. So you're automatically in the no mercy zone, like in the first second or two of engagement. And in bosses, you're the same thing too. You're almost max armor, max no armor, and max no concentration. And of course, the damage is really well with the multiple hits. Now, Zealous Inquisition, I ran this for a long time when I first got it. I think it's okay, but I don't think it's necessary for this build. One, it's kind of a low chance, and so it doesn't feel right because you're already popping Armor Break and then popping Overkill with Herald Dash. So another pop, while sometimes it can be okay, it doesn't feel exactly needed. I feel like you need other stuff to smooth that out, and that's why I stick with Judge, Jury, and No Mercy. Now, you can do Ceremony of Abolition. You can, I think you can drop this if you think you need more defense. Now, if you're running Wind Dancer plus Scavenged Plating, you can get more benefit out of this. But there's some issues with the efficacy of armor right now, so that's where a lot of people are going on this. This is my goal, is to switch into this by 93. Right now, while I'm just mobbing, mapping, I feel that this is the best way to go to make the build just feel really smooth because of the high attack speed. So start off the build, go here. As you're leveling, you can maybe pick up some of these to go when you're dropping your totem. I eventually started here. Now I have this on my necklace. There's some other thoughts about other things, but this is kind of basic. When I first started, I expected into this tree. I had also spec'd into Goring because of the physical damage. This build does physical damage and with the armor break, so this is really good node. But as you come along this tree, and of course your fire damage, you definitely want to pick that up. But you're wanting to get over here. You're wanting to get to pile on because these three nodes are 100% extra damage with enemies with fully broken armor. Okay, this is where your boss damage is going to come from. And then to replace the crossbow tree right here, you're just these three jewel nodes. You're just going to get basic attack damage, damage crossbow, and attack speed. The fourth, which you can have whatever you want, mana, life. These three nodes replace that tree. Sometimes you can get some extra ones, like I got pin here, then I got one with poison. So you can get ignite. I tried the global physical red jewels. They didn't scale as well. These three are you want, and you can get these cheap. I got these for like 15 exalts, almost perfect jewels, and they're like 10,000 DPS. And they totally replace this tree. You don't need an extra bolt because you want to reload as fast as possible via fresh clip, which I didn't. I apologize, I didn't show that. Fresh clip is one of the main components of juicing your DPS. So 1% damage over 6 seconds. So you see this right here, 39,000. Go through the reload cycle. I'm about 70, 75k in damages. In combat is a little higher because of the arc stuff. Yeah. So you can maintain that. See if I can hold the trigger down. I'll maintain 75k. Yeah. So that's why this is not really that well. We're not doing grenade stuff. The reload speed doesn't matter because our attack speed is so high that we're under half a second. Now, early on, you can get a lot of value out of this, but I think that we should respect this tree. Definitely Giant Slayer is a must. Must. Another high profile one is acceleration. You need the skill speed. This is the build skill so with it, so well with it. Maiming strike is good. It adds another layer of defense, and of course the 25% attack damage is like just huge damage boost. Here's again one of those jewels. This one is this rare and unique. This just scales super well, and of course the attack speed. You see, I have over 322 decks, and I have pretty standard. If I drop another 100 divines into this build, I could probably get it closer to 400 decks and get that speed up there higher. You don't need stuff like Pierce or Fork or Chain or anything like that because those initial hits are breaking the armor, and the armor break is your hit. AoE scaling, AoE damage is okay. If you can pick it up, if you want to dabble with it, it's kind of whatever. This build, this node early on is good. I had to spec out of both of these later to go to reach the armor break and to get over to Falcon Technique. Of course, this is just standard stuff here to keep, to quality of life stuff. Thoughts of picking up this, especially for bosses, there's some viability for that. Okay, so that's some of the build stuff. let me go into. So I have the build. I'll have the build link posted in the forums. So, all right, I'm going to end it here, guys. This is my first kind of build guide video, so there might be a lot of errors. There might be a lot of excuses. And in the process of thinking about this build and stuff, there might be some logical fallacies or some wrong assumptions that might be stopping me from taking it to the next level. I've never really done a super high-end build for Path of Exile 1 or 2. So let me know what you guys think, where I can make improvements. Where I want to go next with this build is Warrior. Just let me pull it up here. Warrior Warbringer. Because I think that the armor interaction from that is going to be key. I'll pull it up here. Because I've seen that armor break, which is melee warriors. So I want to see how it does with crossbow. So the next variant of this build will be a Warbringer. I'm basically just going to give the Warbringer all my gear for the Merc. Because of things like break armor equal to 10% of damage dealt, and your break armor 10 below 0. So I've seen some warrior builds that are doing some stream wide pops and stuff with mace strike and stuff. So I want to explore that with this build to see if there's any viability. There's going to be some issues with being on the left side of the tree, picking up, attack speed and stuff that you get. Projectile damage, you don't really get projectile damage, but you do get more physical damage. You do get access to more fire damage and stuff. So I think maybe it could be a good trade off. And I'm going to explore this build going down here to pile on. To what I've seen some of it with Warbringer melee. And since we are summoning a totem in this build, there could be some viability. The ballista is considered a totem, or we could use some of the melee totems too. I'm going to explore that, and I'll post an updated video whenever that happens. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Thoughts, concerns, ideas, let me know. We'll try to progress this build to the next level.